everyone, I'm your host Kirsty and welcome back to Gutter Glitter, the audiobook podcast where each week I read you a chapter from my memoir by the same name. We are up to chapter 22 called I Gave You All My Money. This is a lyric taken from the Lana Del Rey song Dealer off her 2021 album Blue Banisters. The male voice you hear in this track is Miles Kane from The Last Shadow Puppets. They've worked together before. They actually had an album that was meant to come out and it was scrapped, which I think really sucks because this song is really interesting. I love their voices together. I love the way Lana has approached this song. So I don't know, I think that probably would have been pretty cool, but I guess if they scrapped it for a reason. They've done a few other songs together. They did Thunder, which is also on the Blue Banisters album, and California on Norman fucking Rockwell. So yeah, definitely look into a little bit more of their stuff together because they've done some cool stuff. I like their vibe together. I would have loved to play you a snippet of the track, but I tried to upload it and it got flagged for copyright. So I had to remove it, unfortunately. I highly recommend going and checking it out on Spotify. It's so good. It's quite different, very different for Lana. And I think you'd really enjoy it. With that said, let's get straight into the chapter. Chapter 22. I Gave You All My Money. Soundtrack, Lana Del Rey, Dealer. Several things happen to your body when you get clean after a long period of using. There are obvious signs, like your eyes become clearer and your skin less lifeless and grey. But there are other subtle indicators to show that your body is remembering how to function. Within the first week, my appetite came back with a vengeance. After having not eaten a proper meal in over a year and losing over 10 kilos from my small frame, my body was ready to gorge. I went from surviving on one smoothie and 10 cups of coffee a day to 3 solid meals and 3 scheduled snack breaks. Despite that, I would still wake up in the night starving, my stomach crying out for food. My roommate Lee, who had been in and out of the facility for years, offered me an array of snacks she kept hidden in her drawer for just this occasion. Taking food out of the kitchen was forbidden, but she assured me no one ever noticed. From then on, we enjoyed a midnight snack and debriefed about our day's adventures each night before we fell asleep. She was Filipino and looked 19 rather than her actual 27 years. She was stunning and spent hours every morning perfecting her makeup and fussing over the symmetry of her eyebrows. I felt physically inferior to her despite knowing she hated how she looked. We discussed beauty trends, which therapist we were secretly in love with, and played Fuck, Marry, Kill with the other residents until we got in trouble for laughing too loud. We chatted about our personality disorders, and she told me she kept getting dumped by therapists who claimed they don't work with borderline patients. This is disappointingly not uncommon. And she told me about her controlling boyfriend who would steal her phone and turn all her friends and family against her, and how he would beat her and drag her by her hair if she so much as looked at another man or reached out for help. She left the facility a week after me. The day she left, she overdosed on her medication in an attempt to kill herself. Fortunately, she was found just in time and survived. But she had tried before, and I'm certain she will have tried again since. We kept in touch for a while, but I haven't heard anything from her in years. I'm too afraid to check for fear of what I might learn. It's commonly assumed that suicide is a selfish act, but nothing could be further from the truth. People who are suicidal don't just wake up one day and decide to off themselves. They think about it for months and years until they have every detail planned out perfectly. They may have rehearsed their suicide letters in their heads or written them out. By the time someone has successfully died by suicide, the vast majority will have thought about it or attempted it dozens, if not hundreds of times. Trust me when I say that being suicidal and not killing yourself is an act of tremendous strength. A strength that most people are never forced to muster in their entire lives. A strength I truly hope I never have to draw on again. Think about it. From the time we are single-celled amoeba, we were biologically programmed to survive and reproduce. Survive and reproduce. That's our only job. So for a person to have the desire to take their own life and follow through with it, they must be in such an extreme state of despair and for a long enough period of time to override the genetic makeup. That is no small feat. I wish I could say that suicidal ideation was one of those things that healed in the early stages of my sobriety, but that would take a while yet. Watching the changes in my body as it began to recover was interesting. I expected the mental struggles, but seeing the damage I had done to my physical body made it all so real. During the 18 months I'd been stuffing oxy up my nose, it rarely bled. I remember being surprised, because every movie about drug addicts shows them glassy-eyed, gazing into the mirror and washing blood off their upper lip as if they were 11 in Stranger Things. But that wasn't my experience. I took this as a sign that my drug was pure. My oxy was better than your shitty street drugs. It made me feel like I was a fancy, bored housewife, rather than a drug-fucked scumbag. But after a week in rehab, my nose started to bleed, and it didn't stop. It bled every day for 6 months, and then on and off again for a year. It was scratchy and uncomfortable and affected my breathing, as dried blood would clog my airways. The rehab doctor told me that smoking cigarettes had suppressed the bleeding by constricting my blood vessels. When I stopped smoking, my body was finally able to function how it needed to heal. He warned me I might even notice my gums or other small cuts and wounds start to bleed. I wondered what else I'd been preventing from doing its job. How many areas of my body had I injured irreparably? The pain in my body was constant. It was like having a pulled muscle in every inch of my body. Not only that, it made me nauseous and beyond exhausted. Several months earlier, I'd seen a rheumatologist who'd suspected I had fibromyalgia. The two major symptoms of a possible 60 were decreased pain tolerance and chronic fatigue due to overactive nerves. It's as though your nerves are on edge, waiting for disaster to strike at any moment. The rheumatologist couldn't diagnose me definitively at the time, despite my having all the diagnostic symptoms, because opioid addiction presents almost identically to fibromyalgia. To know for certain if I had fibro, I would have to eliminate the opioids, which at the time wasn't feasible. There were 2 types of mattresses in the facility. Ones that had been there for years, and newer, much more comfortable ones made of memory foam. I was placed in one of the ancient beds, and it was destroying my back. I complained every day, asking to be transferred to a new bed, but there simply weren't any available. Instead, I was scheduled to speak with a pain specialist to see if there was anything more he could do. He was a very peculiar man, whose voice reminded me of the comic book guy from The Simpsons. He looked like a potato impersonating a doctor. He was as round as he was tall, wore large glasses, and buckled his pants right up to his nipples. He dressed like an old man, but was only in his 40s. He was so strange that I was distracted during our entire consult, picturing what his life would be like out in the real world. I came to the conclusion that between writing for scientific journals and treating thankless addicts, he collected dolls' shoes and hoarded his receipts just in case. he saw me in an empty patient's bedroom rather than an office. "You must be Kirsten, yes?" he asked in a nasally drawn-out tone while peering at me over the top of his glasses. "Hi, yes," I replied, shaking his hand, which he then immediately sanitized. "You're having issues with pain, yes?" Yeah, so I'm recovering from opioid addiction. I may have fibromyalgia, but we won't be sure until the opiates are out of my system. I was hoping I could change beds to be a bit more comfortable. Well, there are no more beds available right now, but what we can do is put you on a medication called buprenorphine. It's a slow-release opioid painkiller that you take sublingually. We can supply it to you while you're here, and once you leave, we'll provide you with a script that you can take to the pharmacy daily. It lasts 24 hours, and you can only collect one wafer at a time. I stared at him in disbelief. All I wanted was a better bed and maybe a heat pack. Both heat and ice packs were forbidden due to OH&S. But they were allowed to provide me opioids to an opioid addict. Make it make sense. Sorry, no, I'm here to come off the opioids, I said, genuinely concerned he didn't know he was at an addiction recovery centre. Yes, this is a very simple treatment. We use it with heroin and prescription opioid addicts all the time. It is similar to methadone, but safer and easier to withdraw from. But I've already been clean a week. I'm almost through the withdrawals, and the opioids will be out of my system in 3 more days. I'm just looking for alternative ways to manage my pain. I'll take some deep heat if you've got it. I was reeling. Rather than looking at me as an individual, he lumped me in with similar patients, giving me his stock standard treatment suggestions. After the Hippocratic Oath, that's the first thing you learn in any health field. Treat the person, not the disease. My choice wasn't simple. On the one hand, he was offering me an out. He was right in front of me, saying, "Take my hand and I'll guide you back to the promised land." On the other, I was so close to freedom and getting my life back. At lunchtime, I lawlessly told a few of the boys from my group what had happened. They were ex-heroin addicts, so I wanted to get their opinions. Mike looked at me the way I had looked at the doctor, confused and appalled. "He offered you opioids? Does he even know why you're here?" "Yeah, it's weird, right? That's messed up. You're doing so well and he wants to put you on the bupe?" "Don't do it, mate. It's a prison sentence. You have to line up every day like those heroin junkies you see at the pharmacy. You can never go away anywhere. You are literally handcuffed to the pharmacy." "I can't believe he offered you that. You're not thinking about it, are you?" I was. "Nah, no way, fuck that," I responded. He didn't believe me. That night, we piled into a bus and went to an off-site Narcotics Anonymous meeting. We all ended up in those rooms for different reasons, but many of us had one thing in common: crushing loneliness. I didn't resonate with everything the meetings had to offer. A little too many Jonestown vibes for my liking, but one thing they do well is connect lonely people with a community of supportive, understanding folk. And I believe that is where most of the healing takes place. Someone at a meeting once said, "There is never any reason to be lonely. If you're lonely, come to a meeting, talk to people, make friends." I took incredible comfort from that. I had been achingly lonely for so long. The thought of going out and mingling without booze or my comfy blanket of opioids to support me was something I couldn't even fathom. But in the meeting rooms, everybody was working towards sobriety, and they knew how hard it was to integrate back into social situations. They were supportive, kind, and a little odd, just like me. We grabbed our cups of tea and snuck our sugary biscuits before sitting down to share stories. A guy from our group spoke. He was in his mid-30s and rocking strong surfer dude vibes. He was also covered in tattoos, which would come to make sense as he told us he ran a tattoo parlor. 2, actually. One local and another in Bali. Initially, he flew up to Indonesia twice a year to check on the place and make sure all was running smoothly, until he became addicted to Xanax. His Australian prescription was tightly monitored, but it was seemingly a free-for-all in Bali. So each time he visited, he would stock up. The more access he had, the more he took, until he worked through his 6-month supply in a matter of weeks. It got to the point where he would fly to Bali every month to purchase hundreds of pills and chew through them in no time. I wasn't at rehab when he arrived, but apparently he was near comatose for the entire first week, and after that, he was barely conscious. Later, a young girl, not from our rehab group, told her story. She was in her early 20s and very Bondi, with her bleached blonde hair and natural tan. I expected her to start talking about how she smokes too much weed and takes ecstasy on the weekends, writing her off as a party girl. Then she spoke. So, I was at my dealer's house picking up. He just got a new batch of Oxy, so we had some before I left. It was kind of expected at this point that he would want to fuck, but, I got a good deal, so I went along with it. It was nice, anyway, to have someone with me for a while. As she spoke, she looked both sad and hauntingly disconnected from her words. By the time I got back to my car, it was late, around midnight. I was driving home, and I came up to some lights. I don't really know what happened. I didn't see them change to red or even orange, so I just kept going. I was kind of racing home at that stage because the roads were pretty empty and I wanted to get home so I could get into my gear. Then, out of nowhere, this chick comes out on her bike and she looked down at the floor and pathetically clapped her fist into her palm, indicating a collision. The entire room was silent, too afraid to breathe. Her voice had changed when she started talking again. It was broken and shaky, and her eyes were misty. All of our eyes were misty. She died. I killed her. She let that hang in the air for a while. We sat, wide-eyed, many of us with our hands over our mouths in shock. I killed someone. I called for help. I called the ambos, but it was too late. By now, the room was in tears. She was only 22. I stole her whole life because I was racing home to get high. How do you explain that? How do you look her parents in the eyes and tell them that? There is nothing I can do to make it better. I've ruined so many lives. So that's why I'm here. Because I never want to use again. And I never want anyone else to go through anything remotely like this. There is nothing worse. Nothing. So anyway, that's my share. Thanks. We sat in stunned silence, dabbing at our eyes for what seemed like a lifetime before someone finally suggested we take a break. A small group of us loitered outside for a while, drinking tea and taking some deep breaths. Mike approached me. So, that must have been pretty crazy for you, hey? Yeah, I mean, I've never heard anything like that before. Nah, man. I meant how she's basically living your story. What? Can't you see how easily it could have been you telling that story tonight? He started listing the similarities on his fingers. opioid addict, seeks validation from the wrong man. And remind me how many cars you've totaled while using? She's you. You're just lucky you've never hit anyone. Mike walked back inside, and I stood in the dark courtyard cradling my tea, willing it to soothe me from the inside out. The next day, I informed the strange doctor that I'd not be taking the buprenorphine, and instead of regret, I felt tremendous pride. For the first time in about a year, I chose something good for me. I decided to keep trying to make decisions that aided my survival as best I could. Some days, all that would be was staying in bed, watching The Real Housewives and ordering Uber Eats. Other times, I slept all day and brushed my teeth at 3 p.m. But occasionally, I could go to 12-step meetings or therapy or eat something nutritious. I told myself that my only goal was to stay alive. And every day I chose the best way to make that happen. The hope being that eventually survival would become simple, and one day I might even live again. My experience with codependency was the most excruciating I have ever had. The pain of losing myself to another person and giving them complete power over my emotions, unwittingly and unwantingly to them, is the most painful thing I have ever had to drag myself through, without comparison. But if you want to be slapped back to reality, talk to a bunch of addicts about the man you love. A small group of us were playing board games after dinner one night. "So, what's this dude's name?" asked Mike, as I blatantly ignored my instructions not to associate with the male species. "Alessandro." The group snickered. "What?" I demanded, spitting out the T for emphasis. "Nothing, it's just Alessandro," Mike said, rolling his R's dramatically. "It's so posh. What is he, Spanish or some shit?" "He's Italian, actually." Don't call my name, Alessandro," sang Tommy, blatantly taking the piss. "Really?" I asked, rolling my eyes. I'm not your babe, Fernando," another chimed in. Oh my God. Alessandro, Ale Alessandro. The group chorused together before erupting into laughter. I mean, that's not even the words. You're misinterpreting the Stephanie Geminotta, but whatever. For the rest of my time at the clinic, Alessandro was only ever talked about with a strong accent that fluctuated between Italian, Spanish, and French. Nothing cuts a guy down a few pegs more than a bunch of hooligans serenading you with Lady Gaga every time you mention his name. Well, almost nothing. I was in a session with my stupidly attractive rehab psychiatrist. Talk about transference. All psychiatrists and psychologists should have to be hideous potato people. He was talking to me about codependency and the effects of love addiction. It's interesting you've chosen opioids to become dependent on. Oh, I replied, barely listening as I played with a loose string on my jumper. Yes. You know OxyContin mirrors love in the brain. It acts as oxytocin, the love hormone. I looked at him. I'm sorry, Kirsten, but you cannot replace the love of a human being with the love of a pill. Watch me, I thought bitterly. By now, I had wrapped the string around my finger so tightly I could feel my heart beating in my fingertip. I was so broken, my heart so crushed, that I tried to replace the love of a significant other, a best friend, and a father with that of a chemical. Had it worked, I never would have stopped. Why do you think you let this bloke get to you so much? He continued. What? I said, entirely offended by the use of such casual language in reference to the man of my dreams. This guy, Alessandro. What makes him so great? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. How dare he speak about him like he's just an average Joe? Do you know why I'm calling him a bloke? He asked, doubling down. No, I said, reeling. It's because you have him on a pedestal. But in reality, he's just a guy. Just like any other guy. No, he's not, I thought. He's not even particularly nice to you. Yet you talk about him like he could solve the world's problems. He could, I thought to myself. This is addiction. It is obsession. And it is not love. No, but... Love does not fluctuate between astonishing highs and devastating lows hour by hour. It doesn't disappear and result in suicidal thoughts when you go without contact for a day. It doesn't? You do not need to cling and claw at love in desperation. The term clawing made me aware of my hands, which were indented by my fingernails as I had been digging them into my palms. That is fear, not love. Do you feel afraid? All the time. I don't know, maybe. Love is peaceful, gentle and comforting. It comes from deeply learning who someone is. So tell me, this bloke, what is it you love about him? Everything. Just like, the way he... Shit. Wait. My mind was blank. I knew I needed him. And that need felt so powerful that it must be my destiny to be with him, right? But when presented with this seemingly innocuous question, I couldn't think of a single thing I actually liked about being with him. I really like it when... No, it's just that he's... Fuck, I sighed. I was coming to the end of my 28 days. The final week was tough as I watched the friends I'd connected with start to leave one by one. For many of them, it would be easy to catch up on the outside and attend meetings together. But I was going back to Melbourne, where I would only be joined by a few stragglers. When Tommy left, the facility instantly became a lot quieter and duller. We made plans to keep in touch on the outside, and, despite him being in Sydney, we became very close very quickly. Once I'd left and was reunited with my phone, we would message each other every day. We developed a ritual of date nights where we would press play on RuPaul's Drag Race and Vanderpump Rules and watch together as we laughed about their dismal outfits, Adderall addictions, and poor life choices. Totally unrelatable. We both adore animals, great and small, and would talk at length about them. He's the only other person I have ever met who saves insects that have become trapped in pools. This is something I have also done since I was a very small child, unable to watch beetles and flying critters struggle to breathe as they hit the water for a drink, only to drown. I would scoop them up in my hands and gently guide them to safety. Relieved, the insects would wait a few moments for their wings to dry before flying to freedom. Mum always told me to be careful saving the bees and wasps, but I never worried. They were grateful and never stung me. Tommy has a heart that I understand. He is sensitive and kind beyond most people's understanding. He is my people. Mike left a week before me. That was hard. We had come in together and I felt safe and secure with him around. We had been in group therapy together and attended the same meetings, so we learned a lot about each other. He saw past the makeup and the flirting and saw the real me. Not only that, he liked who he saw. The day he was leaving, he found me to say goodbye. Hey, I'm leaving soon. I just wanted to say goodbye and wish you luck. I loved listening to him talk in group. To look at him, you'd expect him to be rough around the edges, but the years of therapy and self-improvement had worked wonders. He wasn't at all afraid of open and honest communication. He showed his bravery through vulnerability, not stoicism. I heard you were leaving today. That sucks. For me, I'm happy for you. You'll be good. You just got to keep going to meetings on the outside and don't fuck with boys for a while. Wise words. Anyway, I wanted to give you this. He handed me a small book of daily reflections by AA members for AA members. He took it everywhere with him, and whenever he felt wobbly, he read a few pages. I thought it was a really sweet gesture, but a little bit like giving me a Bible I would never read. I gave him a hug. Keep in touch, okay? Sure thing, mate. You got this. As he left, I opened the book. Inside the front cover, he had written a message. Kirsty, you are a funny, beautiful, talented girl with a heart of gold. Thank you for the belly laughs, games of adult Pictionary, and inappropriate beach walks. Wishing you the very best in your recovery, one day at a time. Your friend, Mike. Here was a man, maybe the first, who had saw my worth without wanting or expecting anything from me. Here was a friend. Thanks for listening. If you want more, check out the show notes and follow the link to my website or Linktree, where you can get your very own copy of the book in eBook or paperback. Join me on Instagram or listen to the Spotify playlist of all the theme songs from the book. Don't forget to subscribe to the pod so it downloads straight to your app each week. And if you like the show, why not share it with your mates? All right, see you guys. Bye.